Yeah, perhaps it's because you're not used to being a business owner, you don't realise this is normal.
We're laughing, but here's a dark laughter. Can you hear that? It's like a dark survivalist laughter.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're so funny. Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show.
How are you?
I'm very well, Judith. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm underneath the flight path towards Heathrow Airport, so if there's jumbo jet noise, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do about it.
No, absolutely. Well, I probably won't hear it anyway, because we always imagine these noises are louder than they are.
Yes, that's true. We seem to manage to... There's a thing, isn't there, that cleans up the audio a bit?
Yes, it's called Ophonic, and I like it a lot. It's very useful.
Tell me about your week.
Well, no, first I'd like to clear up something. A quote from yourself, actually, on social media. She's Welsh, so am I, vaguely.
My surname's Morgan. It's the most Welsh word on the English, in the planet. My father was born in England, but all his relatives on his side were born in Wales and are Welsh.
And have you been to the village of your genesis?
I certainly have. Many times as a child, and was forced to eat and drink strange Welsh things.
Like faggots?
No. Welsh, we had lots of relatives, so what we had to do was, and this is going back to the 50s, we had to visit them all, and so they would all want to feed you and give you something to drink at everywhere you went. So it was sort of a bloat fest, really. And I remember Welsh women can sometimes be, and this is a horrific generalisation, quite assertive. And I remember one of these aunties pressing on me a baby sham when I was 12 or something like that. Really didn't want it, but you couldn't really say boo to these women. They were terrifying, and so we used to eat many teas that we didn't actually want. I don't drink tea either, you see. But when my brother and I went back later, it was much nicer than that, because they all lived on beautiful farms, and you had fresh bacon in the morning that had been running around the day before, and lovely countryside, and gorgeous cousins who'd grown up to be farmers, which are businessmen. And women, businessmen and women. But yes, I am vaguely Welsh. And in fact, when I saw myself on the television once, I thought, holy shit, you look so Welsh. My colouring is very Welsh. It's dark-eyed and, Celtic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Well, it made me laugh a lot when I saw that. So I thought I'd have to question it.
Well, there you go.
I had a very strange dream last night. This is what we reduced to talking about. And other people's dreams are always really boring. I was locked up in a loony bin. And it looked like an OAP home, so it looked like an old people's home, but I knew in my head it was a detention centre of some kind. And there were two kittens, a black one and a white one, and the black one was terrorising the white one. And just as I was about to rescue the white one, I was called to go and see the shrink. And I was trying to explain to him how marketing works. And he turned around and he looked at me and he said, just before I woke up, "So tell me why you're really here then." Something going on there, isn't there, in my subconscious? And what else happened? I played poker. There's been some interesting developments on the world stage that, as usual, are not being reported in the mainstream media, so we can't talk about those. Otherwise, I might get another URL banned. But it's been much more of the same, actually. I'll tell you more about what I've really been doing in the Fueled Your Fire section.
Okay.
What about you?
Oh, lots to tell you here. I've moved to East Sheen. The house and the garden are very big. The main house is strangely old-fashioned and not one I would have bought, but the overall effect is very comfortable, and they've added on some very tasteful and beautiful extensions, and I'm speaking to you from one of them now. I've set up my desk in the laundry room. I love an annex me, and I love having a proper wooden desk and a comfy chair and good daylight and my elbows on the desk. I'm anticipating, I should say, from this vantage point, a creativity surge in the next 2 months. I'm feeling a bit energized. I haven't had a desk since, I can't remember.
And no dining tables or anything either as well?
Not really. No, not really. Not that I've been out for long enough,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I've got 2 months here until the 5th of September. That's a long time. So I'm feeling like bringing everything into the car, possibly this weekend, and rationalising what I've got in there, because when I don't bring it all in, I tend to sort of buy it again, and that just adds to the vast quantity of consumables I'm lugging around the world with me. So I'm going to go for a using up strategy. No new moisturiser until you've used up all the old ones. No new tissues till you've used up the old ones. No washing tablets till you've used up the old ones, that kind of thing. Lots and lots of chatelaine jobs here. There's fish to feed every day, and I have to run their waterfall into their pond to aerate it. Nice. I've got lots of veg to water. I've no idea what I'm going to do with the veg. We'll talk about that in a minute. I've got pots, I've got roses, I've got hydrangeas, I've got primroses. There's a gardener once a week. I haven't met him yet. I'm really looking forward to meeting him. I have to tomerite all the vegetables on Monday. I have to put the bins out on Sunday. I have to air the bedrooms. And frankly, I've got no idea what I'm doing with quite a lot of this. And I asked Facebook about airing bedrooms, and no consensus was achieved. And no sooner had I opened all the windows than the window cleaner arrived and asked me to close them all. So, and actually it's been quite sort of cold this week. I've bought fluffy slippers and fluffy socks, and I'm waiting for some sunny days, really, as I can't see the point in opening up the windows to let more dank in.
No, I totally agree. Yes, absolutely.
If it's sunny, you open all the windows, don't you, just naturally? Yeah. Anyway, the comfort of the house struck me immediately, and it made me think I could relax back into lots of things I haven't had the focus for it recently. So even though it's not the central bit, it's like an old lady that's had lots of good modern bits added on, and the central bit in the middle isn't something I would have bought, but is nevertheless very comfortable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, gotcha.
And 2 significant dates. 7/7, which was 2 days ago, is Nicola King's birthday.
Oh, yeah, happy birthday, Nicola.
It's my brother and sister-in-law's wedding anniversary, 36 years. It's the day that London was blown up in 2005.
I remember.
And Nicola and I had the day off, and we'd gone to the Wolsey in Piccadilly for brunch, and we got our phones turned off, as was the etiquette in a restaurant in 2005. And we were celebrating very much, particularly Nicola, on her birthday, learning that the day before, London had been selected to host the 2012 Olympics. I can't even ever forget that number, even if it wasn't my favourite number twice, 7. But when we came out of the restaurant and we turned on our phones and we went to the dock to get the boat back to Canary Wharf, our phones were absolutely full of everybody that loved us wanting to know that we were safe. And we, of course, were oblivious to it all because we'd just been chowing down on Eggs Benedict in a posh restaurant. But last Thursday, when I spoke to you, was the 1st of July, and I had no idea how I forgot to tell you that was the 43rd anniversary of my becoming self-employed.
Wow. 43 years unemployed, self-employed, sorry.
Or unemployed, Freudian slip, yes, yeah.
Well, that's marvellous, isn't it?
Yes. So early July is full of big dates, and normally it would be full of Wimbledon tennis, which we're not having, and I don't really like sport, but that's the only one I like. So I've been watching all of these, reruns of old wonderful sporting, Wimbledon finals with Andy Murray, and it's a sort of fake tennis buzz. Really.
Yeah. Well, of course, I obviously forgot to mention the fact that Kanye West has declared that he's running for president, which is something we probably shouldn't talk about, but is really quite entertaining from my.
Well, I just want to say one thing. After Trumpy coming from The Apprentice, Kanye clearly thinks that all you have to do to qualify for being the president is be famous.
Yeah, no, he does. He has watched a film, and he does have the Kardashian mighty empire with. What's her name at the head? Kris Kardashian at the head of it. So he has got a lot of quite savvy businesswomen around him. But and he's
yeah, but none of them are politicians or know how to run a country, the biggest and the most important country in the world.
I've read his interview with Forbes magazine, which is the newest he's come to a manifesto yet, and he does say that he's going to rely heavily on very good advisors. So
I've been told he'll just split the vote and get Trump back in.
You think that's what he's up to?
No, I don't think he's up to it. I think that's what'll, if anybody even takes him seriously, I think that's probably there's a risk of that, certainly.
Yeah. But there's someone else who's declared for an independent party as well. So we're back with a 5-horse race, which
for the moment.
A good thing.
Yeah.
Moving on. So, what's fueled your fire this week then?
You go first.
Okay. Well, I'm in the middle of my 5-day challenge. I'm on day 4 today, which is Thursday. Anyone who can, anyone who knows me knows I'm not very organised, so it's a miracle I'm keeping up. But this has the training I've been doing about how to run a 5-day challenge efficiently and get the most engagement has meant that it has been a step up from all the others I've done. And the good thing is that once I've got this licked into shape, I'll be able to run them 3 or 4 times a year without too much redoing, because the content's sound. And I just had to make it, because I rebranded it the Clicks and Leads 5-day challenge, because Facebook just wouldn't let me mention it, wouldn't let me link to anything. So I got thoroughly fed up and just rebranded it. So that involved quite a bit of re-recording videos, but it's done now. 57 people have joined. 10 people are highly engaged. And I think that probably means that 20 people are still going along and doing the jobs, but not engaging necessarily quite so publicly. And as that's enough to keep me, occupied and excited about it all. And today is last night I started to, say what people can do to get help after the challenge ends. And tonight and tomorrow night I'll be mentioning that as well. And I'm offering a really good discount for a year's mentoring. So I'm hopeful that some will take me up on that. And of course, then I'll have my first sets of data, which is when you think, okay, well, how many how many heard about it, how many joined, how many engaged, how many stayed in to the end, and how many then went on to take you up on your offer. And data is a marvelous thing, because you can then figure out which bits you need to improve. And of course, you get feedback from some great people. And there's some really great people in there, complete strangers, and people who I know from other people's groups. So they've obviously picked up on my marketing. So I'm feeling very good about all that.
And last week you only had 30 joiners, and this week 57. You've nearly doubled that number in a week. That's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, which is typical, isn't it?
Well, yes, because you were a bit worried, and I went, well, why don't we just wait and see?
Yes, you did. And we all know that 50% of people book on events at the last 2 weeks. So it really did just follow but the best thing of all, Judith, is I feel I've learned something, the whole bot thing and everything, and an active campaign being a new email list host, which I like a lot. And the thing is, I really do feel that I could run these 3 or 4 times a year. I like the short, sharp bursts of activity, as you know, and I really feel that I'm going to get better at them every time I do them. So,
well, that's proper fire fueling.
Yes, fire fueling stuff.
Yes.
Wood, in other words. Don't mention wood.
Or kindling.
Yes, kindling. Yes, anyway, I'm still watching the survival videos, so any mention of wood, I'm off. I've been watching someone making a log cabin sauna this week, and I can tell you the best way to put logs together so that you don't have so much gap in between, so you don't have to do so much caulking, as it's called. But I'm sure that wouldn't interest you at all, Judy.
Yes, be still my beating heart. I can file that in the we'll never need this information.
No, but Nicola knows it if I do.
Well, no, I'd get a man round to do it, wouldn't I?
Yeah, you would probably, yes.
I don't think I'd want a sauna either. I'm not really mad keen on saunas.
Yeah, he's making a sauna after he made his main wood cabin. And then, you have to, because you can't do everything.
Mind you, if I lived in the woods, I might want a sauna, because I might need to warm up.
Well, it doubles as a shower and laundry room. And the funny thing was that his wife has just decided, they've been married for, loads of years and everything, and this was his project. But now she's retired, she's decided to join him. But she said, you must upgrade the facilities or I'm not coming.
Well, absolutely right. I mean, the room I'm speaking to you from is quite similar in a funny sort of a way, in as much as it's a very posh sort of wooden annex. I mean, it's filled with German washing machines and tumble dryers and things. So it's very, very comfortable indeed. And it's got one of those doors where you can open half of it, like a farm. You can have the door.
Yeah, stable door.
But I can't. Yeah, stable door. I can't get that to work, so it's all or nothing for me. But there's a Roberts radio in here. There's a Daewoo fan if I'm hot. There's a skylight. It's the boiler room's here if I'm cold. I can open doors. All temperatures in here. It's nice and toasty.
Oh, lovely! Sounds great. So,
given that it's July, I was going to say, given it's July, you wouldn't think we would need toasty, but we have need toasty this week, haven't we?
Yes, and I'm looking at pictures of Stupa, thinking, busily planning when I can go. So, what about you then? Your fire?
Yeah, well, I was going to say it's a whole raft of little presents I've bought for myself this week now that I'm settled for 2 months, but actually it was the response we got yesterday in the Facebook group when I asked for topics for today's focus, and 11 listeners came up with 18 good ideas between them. And I'm reminded that last time we ran out of things to talk about, which was a couple of years ago, we came up with the idea of the listener guest, but that's quite hard work scheduling 4 people on a Friday morning that we then record back to back and stash. And actually, it's quite a long time since we've run out of ideas. But I'm thinking there could be 2 reasons why there was so much more engagement from the listener in the group yesterday, which is, the longer we go on with this, the more familiar they are with us. But also, I think they're more available to answer such questions from us during lockdown, when some of them may be doing less or more worried about certain topics. Anyway, listeners and participants and responders to my question yesterday, thank you to everyone, and I'm banking them all for future use.
Yeah, absolutely. And there were some really good ones, weren't there?
Yes, there were some corkers, actually. Yeah. I would say the majority of them were excellent, and the little tiddlers we can bundle together in a sort of clinic type one, I was thinking.
Yeah, nice. I like that idea a lot. And of course, don't forget, as time goes on, every month we've got more listeners. And
Yeah. No, I definitely think it's that. Although the majority of the people were people that we know very well from old.
Yeah, which is lovely too.
Mm.
So would you like to share with us the first of those focuses?
I would. I'm going to go with the one from Gwynne Penny, who is somebody that I feel I know quite well now from Facebook, and I'm going to call it Maintaining Momentum. She said, I felt like I was on my way towards something, had some momentum. Then the lockdown happened, and now I'm struggling to get going again. It's been good in some ways for me creatively, but bad in others. I was laying the foundations for my future art business, and now I feel as if that has stalled. So here's her question. How do we deal with massive interruptions like this and prevent it from knocking us off course? I know this is something that has already been touched on, but it's the main thing on my mind right now, and I'm fairly sure she's not alone with that.
Mm. Do you want me to give my thoughts?
You can. Yes.
Okay. Well, I don't think any of us in living memory have experienced an interruption like this. It has been, in my lifetime, absolutely unprecedented, and I've been through some fairly major shake-ups. I think the ongoing nature of it, the fact that things are going to, whether or not it's necessary for that to happen, are going to be different afterwards. And I think you've got to be, and I never thought I'd hear myself say these words, I think you've got to be kind to yourself, because I went through a totally similar experience. I felt I was on my way to something just before Christmas and knew what I was doing. And then that all went wrong. And I think now that was because of the pandemic coming, although it wasn't ever, we didn't really know about it till January. I think it was in the zeitgeist and people were feeling unsettled. So then the pandemic came and I thought, okay, that's it. I'm giving up marketing. I'm going to be a scriptwriter. I'm just going to throw myself into that. And, then it got worse and I realised I wasn't going to be able to go on this course in April. So everything got put back again. And then what I found happened was, as the anxiety sort of, I let myself relax into it and stop being so on alert and on guard and trying to have practical solutions for every possible eventuality. I started to relax back into thinking about what made life meaningful for me. And I realised that what made life meaningful was helping people with their marketing. And so in a funny way, I came full circle in 3 months and I'm back to where I was. And even knowing that, I still didn't feel very motivated even 2 weeks ago. But then gradually it crept back. So perhaps you're just not ready yet. Perhaps, you need to give it some more time and see what happens, because art's a very creative thing that comes from the soul, isn't it? And you can't force it.
Sorry. Yes, absolutely. You can't force it. Although what she's saying creatively, it's been good for her. But it's the business side that's been perhaps trickier. And I think, have you drawn breath? Shall I speak?
Yes, I have drawn breath, yes.
Okay, so going back over my 43 years, I think the early years were a breeze. The first 10 years were an absolute breeze. I traded up my house 4 times, starting at 9,000 and ending up 120,000. And I think we think at the beginning that there's going to be this straight line upward curve. Whereas, in fact, if I look back over those 43 years, it's much more like snakes and ladders, my picture. So I go up, I go down. I go up, I go down, I go up, I go down. I've drawn this here. It's just a up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. That's the way it is. And I think in the end, you learn a resilience. You learn how to survive. You learn how to thrive. You learn how to manage your state to be and vibe to be good in all circumstances. But, you know, the choice to be self-employed is not straightforward, does not follow any rules. No crystal ball could have predicted what we're going through now. Actually, no crystal ball will predict the next one or the one after that or the one after that. And I've had about one every decade since I've started. I've been, you know, sometimes I've earned £250,000. Sometimes I've earned barely enough to cover my personal allowance. So my income does snakes and ladders. My personal circumstances do snakes and ladders. I own multiple properties. I lose them. It's just the way that it is, I think. And funnily enough, you can't assume that when the world is down, you'll be down, or vice versa. Because when I looked at this in detail, I realised that even though I was busted back to the rented sector between 94 and 2008, and I'd done an IVA with my creditors in 92, within 5 years, I built the business up to 6 employees and 6 figures and sold it for 6 figures in 1997. So that was really quite brilliant in a way. So even though I was down in my personal finances, which is all derived from what you're able to take out of the business, I was up in, you know, I made more progress in those 5 years in terms of being a business owner than in all the 43 years, I think. But it's just up, down, up, down, up, down. So, you know, first of all, it was interest rates at 18%, then it was interest rates at 0, then it's a credit crunch, then it's a pandemic, then it's a property crash, then it's a, it's just that you might just as well think of it as, I mean, I've never played one or even seen one or even watched one, but you might just as well think of it as one of those games that people play on those gadgets where you have to kill people and go up to the next level. It's like, you know, what are they called? Computer games. It's just
multiplayer.
Yeah, it's a game. And actually, if you're up or if you're down, you just want to learn to be all right in both places or in the middle. And I think if you think of it like a figure 8, which is I'm going up, I'm going around the top, I'm coming back down, I'm going around the bottom, I'm going up the top again. It's just the cycle of economic life in my lifetime. Now, will it be like that in the future? We don't know. I mean, the 10 years of, you know, my first recession was very short. 92 to 95 was the major impact of it, although it started in 87. This last one has dragged on for 12 years.
Yeah. And we hadn't actually recovered from that when this all hit.
No, that's absolutely right. Yes.
The phrase that popped into my mind is that I've learned to be resilient, and I've also learned what's important. And what's important is basically not the things you think it is.
Yeah, I think you've got to roll with it. That's the thing. You've got to learn to roll with it. And it's not your fault. Interestingly, Gwynne isn't actually blaming herself here. No. She's saying, how do you deal with the massive interruptions? You accept them. You certainly accept how we all got to accept how we're feeling around this, and that changes. We've got to think, you know, what can I do today? Would it make me feel better to go and create some art or not? You know, I paid my accountant's bills this morning out of the government loans that I was given. You know, there's an upside to everything. Do you know what I mean? It's like, the government's paid my accountancy bill for me today. I think it's just, you know, you've got to look for the diamond in the rough a bit. And I think the more you do it, the better at it you get. Everything's okay, Gwynne. Everything's okay, whatever it's like.
Yeah, but you know, and I've finally got around to typing up my manifesto. You know, the manifesto we talked about. Yes. And I expanded on some of the things, and it reminded me very much of all the things that, you know, just 12 things I've learned with a bonus one, and they've been learned through experience. Nobody, if anyone had told me those 12 things at the beginning, I wouldn't have thought they would be very important at all. So I think you learn your own 12 things as you go through life, don't you? And
I also think that my snakes and ladders is exactly about my date of birth. So because I was born in 1955, which was 6 years before you, although you were hit by that first one, you weren't hit as badly as I were. It was because you were in a job in 1987 and I was already self-employed, and I was an accountant then. And what happens in a recession is that accountants work all the way up until until midnight when their clients put themselves into receivership, and you advise them all the way through that, and then you don't get paid. So I'm doing all this work I know I'm not going to get paid for. So it's like, so the first one, if I hadn't been born in 1955, I wouldn't have had 2 recessions and my pension stolen. And that's all outside my control. So the way I have to roll with that is I can't be bitter and twisted, although I've certainly spent a lot of time there, because you try to work out how you feel about these things, but you can't get stuck there. You have to have one of the ladies yesterday sent me a message privately and said, what did I do about this? And I phoned her up and we had a chat, and she said, I feel better now. And I said, you've just got to do double and quadruple the vibe stuff.
Yeah.
If you're not working and you're not earning, you've got nothing else to do, have you, except turn on YouTube and do the 4-3-2, an Abraham, the Ho'oponopono, some affirmations, whatever it takes. And Mahatma Gandhi used to say, on the difficult days, you double it. Take twice the medicine. Twice the medicine on the difficult days.
I was just about to say that. And I have on occasion done more than one meditation back to back, just because the first one didn't make
keep going. If it feels good, keep going. There was
do it again.
quite a lot of our correspondence in this point yesterday made this point about self-care in capital letters and keep on doing it. We didn't really know what it was when we used to espouse it 15 years ago, but oh boy, do we know what it is now, because we bloody need it.
Yeah. I mean, I used to be, when I was, with money gym and the kids were young and everything, and I was just running faster and faster and faster trying to make everything work. And it was just, I didn't feel, I remember some of my mentors used to say, slow down, take the weekend off, enjoy being with the kids. And I used to think, I can't, because I've got to fix everything.
But the point is, 15 years on, that wouldn't have made any difference if you had back then.
No. Say that again.
If although you couldn't see it at the time, given that you're still self-employed 15 years later after you got that advice, it wouldn't have made any difference if you'd had the weekend off back in 2005.
No, it wouldn't. And that's, that's the one thing I say to people now, especially if they've got money problems, is that, people in those businesses that are hounding you during the week, they go home at 5 o'clock. And they go home at weekends. And this is exactly what my mentor told me. And I just couldn't take it on board then, because I wasn't doing any self-care. And I didn't give myself any brain space to absorb anything.
Yeah.
And so I didn't absorb the fact that he said, unless you owe money to the mafia, they're not going to come and kill you. They switch off at 5. They switch off at 5 on a Friday. They go home for 2 days. They don't think about Nicola Cairncross owing them 500 quid, or whatever it is. And he said, you've just got to switch off from this and give yourself some space. And I suppose he was exactly the same thing, wasn't he?
I think that the Gwynne's concern is she's lost her momentum. She'd started off and it was going very nicely, and now she's a bit pissed off. She's lost and I think that's fair enough. And I think the fact is, how do we deal with massive interruptions? Expect them. They're normal.
And think of it like, it's like a great big, is it a flywheel, the big concrete wheel in a mill house? It takes ages to get that rolling, but and the momentum, what you were saying when you were feeling the momentum was going, and now that flywheel has come to a grinding, shuddering halt through, external circumstances. It is quite naturally going to take a little while to get it back up to speed again, even if you want it to. And so I think the thing to think about is, what's the one tiny thing I could do today? I mean, I still love that. Let's get the file out. What's the one thing I could do to move this one step forward? Because if you can do that, you're going to have a sense of achievement, and then that will take you into tomorrow when you'll do the next thing, and then the next day, So just think about the things you are doing successfully, even if the only one is getting out of bed and cleaning.
Well, interesting, she says that the most important one to me is she's still got right. She says, it's been good in some ways for me creatively. Well, what's more important from an artistic perspective than to keep going into the studio and making art? Because then you've got some nice stock to sell when people are buying, if that's the issue. But I do think that there were people at the beginning of the. I've loved, it's my favourite hobby, observing how people have responded to this. Because there were all those people that rushed into being of service to others and offering things and being busy and Zooming and all that kind of thing. Total burnout now.
Yes.
The point is, there's no right or wrong way, Gwynne. There's your own way. And to feel increasingly confident as days and weeks and years go by, not in the pandemic, but in your business career, your artistic business career, the business of being an artist, that whatever you decide is right.
Yes, there's no wrong way. And
no.
If businesses are like creativity, and I can't remember, is it Elizabeth Gilbert who talks about all the ideas being out there floating around in the universe, just waiting for someone to reach up and pluck them down as their own, then that's what businesses are like too. Your business isn't going anywhere. It's waiting for you out there in the universe. And it's just yours. Nobody else can have it.
There's a book, and you probably don't want to read another book, so you might listen to it on Audible if that's your choice. And it's called Uncertainty. Do you remember who wrote Uncertainty, Nicola?
Oh, no, I haven't read it.
Oh, hang on a minute. I'm going to look it up. We've mentioned it before. We mentioned it a lot. I'm just going to... it's a man we like. Uncertainty. Get comfortable with uncertainty.
Because that's all there is.
Yeah, and everything else is really, here we go, Jonathan Fields, Uncertainty, turning fear and doubt into fuel for brilliance. These days I listen to things, I don't buy another book to read. Audible books, 1 credit. Yes, I've got a credit, I think.
He's one of the minimalists, isn't he?
No, that's Jonathan Fields Milburn. This is a man who was a guru. See, I purchased this book on the 21st of December 2011. I do remember it being helpful. He's a good lad.
I just moved into the house in John Street then.
There you go.
I'd clawed my way back up from being practically homeless to having my another home.
Well, Nicola and I, as you can hear, gentle listener, like to claw our way back from practically homeless. You don't have to do self-employed in quite such a scary seat of the pants way if you don't want to. However, if it brings you to that place, know that you come out of that place.
Yes. Nothing terrible happens. Nobody comes to kill you.
No. That's, and I always think the money comes from somewhere. So it came from PPI and it came from government, furloughing and bounce back loans and SIBLs. And
don't mention bounce back loans to me because I'm just really hacked off that I haven't managed to get one yet because all of the banks are running out of money now. So it's getting harder and harder to get your hands on a bounce back loan.
Yeah, well, one of your mentors taught me an expression. Delay is increasingly expensive. You should have piled in straight off.
I have been piling in straight off, but because of the fact I was winding that business down.
Compared to me, you were a bit sluggish, fairly, honestly.
Well, you were. Had a business account for your business.
That's true. That was true. Yeah.
I just closed mine just after Christmas. So yes. Anyway,
I'm still hoping for furloughing.
Really?
Yeah. These forgotten directors of limited companies, they're lobbying. There was debated in Parliament yesterday. I haven't heard the outcome yet. It was one of those wretched things that never work. What are they called? Petitions. Yeah. But when my accountant sent me a report yesterday of the mini budget, I said, any news for us directors of limited companies? He said, we're still lobbying. I said, look, I really want my furlough holiday on Rishi. So I'm hoping he's going to get that organised.
And would that be backdated then?
Yes.
Woohoo! Oh, that'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it?
Oh, yes, it would.
Anyway, back to Gwynne. This is normal, love, not exceptional, okay? Yours has come early.
Yeah, perhaps it's because you're not used to being a business owner, you don't realise this is normal.
We're laughing, but here's a dark laughter. Can you hear that? It's like a dark survivalist laughter.
Yeah. Oh, my God, you're so funny. Right,
and actually, if you think about it, if this is normal, the sooner you find that out, the better. Yes.
Nothing like a pandemic to get you going. What's it? Drop you in at the deep end, is there?
Well, we didn't even know what the word meant 3 months ago, did we?
No, we didn't. It was ridiculous. So, honestly, I mean, I say to the kids, you just have no idea how historic this event is. For whatever reasons and whatever's happening, it's all very historic.
Well, actually, all of my things that have brought me down have been historic.
Yes. No, it's never been anything to do with you, is it?
No, they've all been historic.
And I think that's the thing, is it? It's all very well blaming yourself for the stuff that you could have got control over, but I mean, you can't blame yourself for the stuff you haven't got control over.
There's no blame here. I like that about her thing. How do we deal with massive interruptions? Just get used to it and know that it's going to happen, and learn this kind of roll with it thing, which is think of your art career being 43 years in minimum.
I think if I've learned one thing out of the 12 things, it's that the people who are able to be most resilient are the ones who've got the reserves. So it's absolutely unbelievably crucial. And I've never been a saver. I really haven't. I've always never seen the point. And then I became an investor before I ever became a saver again. And I still am learning the whole saving thing. But I just feel that the more reserves you've got behind you, the better able you are to weather these life events and business events.
But my perspective is that it's never the reserve that you've got that will get you through this recession or situation.
It's your resilience.
So the first one, it would have been good to have cash in 1987 because interest rates went up to 18%. They've practically been at zero for the last decade, so cash doesn't do you any good at all. And what we needed for the pandemic initially was toilet rolls. You've not got what you need. You might as well accept you haven't got what you need, except in yourself to get through it. So if you were stashing up any resources, it should be of resilience, patience, understanding, self-love, high vibe, all of the personal qualities. This is welcome to our world.
Instead of pasta, brown
welcome
rice.
to our world, but no need to do it the rash way that Nicola and I have done it. Okay.
No, definitely not. I'd highly recommend avoiding my way. That's for sure.
Let us move swiftly along to your word of the week.
It's certainty. Because I'm feeling a lot more certain this week. I'm feeling more certain about what I want to do. I'm feeling certain about how I'm going to do it. I feel certain after seeing the doctor from Dallas that the world is not such a dangerous place as it was last week. I'm just feeling a lot more certain about everything, which is.
Don't you see what that is? That's like market confidence. It's an illusion, but it feels good.
Yes, and it is.
So actually, you might as well choose it, Gwynne.
Yeah, choose to be certain.
Well, choose what you want to feel like that would feel resourced and get you back from your stalling.
Yes, and not much has changed since last week, so there you go.
No, it's all in how we get up and feel, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. What about you then?
I'm going with dank, which means unpleasantly damp and cold. Early in my life, I lived in Oxfordshire, which is the bottom of Oxford is the bottom of the Thames Valley, and I remember the long, cold, wet winters due to its physical geography. It's one of the furthest places from the coast in England. It's bang in the middle of the country and very low lying. And July's been like that. It's dank and cold. I've bought fluffy slippers and fluffy socks. It's dank.
I know, it's been grim this
I'm
week.
not complaining really, because lockdown was mostly sunny and we had 3 scorchio days the other day, but dank brings its own special challenges. You can feel, it feels like your clothes and your bed linen and things like, and your settee, they're not damp, but there's a particular touch to them.
Yes, I know.
Which is the moisture in the air,
Yes, it is. Right then, project updates.
Yeah, you go.
I haven't really got anything to update except that the podcast awards are this weekend and they're going to be streaming them live. I might watch, but it is a Saturday night, so I might not. We were a bit slack on the promotion of our podcast. We did quite a bit the first week and then we totally forgot about it. So who knows if we'll do anything. But I thought, to cheer myself up from that thought, I went and had a look at our downloads, which are holding strong, which then occasions me to remind all our lovely listeners, if you could just share the podcast with one person this week, we might nearly double our numbers, and that would be just wonderful. So that's what keeps us going, is the listeners keep growing.
Indeed.
Good, wasn't it? That was a good slogan.
Yep.
What about you then?
I think I've told you everything. Too knackered from all this recent moving to do anything with Jordan yet, but I've got my kitchen table, so I'm optimistic.
Have kitchen table, we'll get creative.
Yeah.
Who or what's impressed this week?
Yeah, you go.
Okay, I have been watching I May Destroy You by Michaela Coel.
I think she's very strange.
Well, she's when you start watching her, she looks strange first, but when you start watching her, she's absolutely compelling. And she acts in it, she wrote it, and she directed it. And not only that, but it's a true story of something that happened to her. And so I was watching it and I was thinking, this is so real life, it's unreal. It's unreal how real it is.
And it was real.
And it was real. And the way she portrays everything, even the way that people interact with each other, it's exactly how I imagine living in London as a young, trendy thing would be right now. And anyway, so I absolutely love it. And hang on, I've written something here that I totally can't read.
She is quite a talent. Unfortunately, she's a talent that the BBC recognises. It's not her first thing. They give her, it's a BBC Three thing, I think, isn't it? They give her a platform. They like her.
And the reason that that's so good is because she has done quite a lot with Netflix in the past. That's what my notes are saying. And they wanted 100% of the copyright on this.
Wow.
And because she refused, that was when she went to the BBC, and they've allowed her to keep the ownership of it.
Oh.
That's a bit bad, isn't it?
No, that's actually what we call restrictive practice, I think.
It's just ridiculous.
Well, what it does is it demonstrates the power they've got.
And
demonstrates the power they think they've got.
Well, interesting you say that, because the person at Netflix that she was negotiating with, who obviously will remain nameless, actually said to her quietly, "I really admire you for standing up for yourself."
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was what gave her the strength and the power to go off and look for another.
Yeah. And what an interesting thought, actually, for all of us, because it goes much broader than just negotiating her TV work. It goes to every deal any of us ever do. We don't have to accept the other people's terms if we don't want to.
No, and it's interesting that it happened that I found out about it on a day when the BBC, Helen Mirren called for the BBC to be defunded, because I wonder if the BBC was defunded, whether they would have been able to take that drama series and run with it without making money out of it in some way that would have been detrimental to Michaela.
Well, I think what the BBC will have to do in the end, because of all the streaming competition and all the other ways we can watch telly these days, is switch to the same model that we're all perfectly happy with, which is to pay monthly for content we like.
Oh, well, I pay more monthly for content without adverts.
Yes. Well, I don't think the BBC will introduce adverts if they're being funded by, just a different way of paying the licence. The thing you have to remember with the BBC, and I'm a bit cross with them actually, because
I knew this would wind you up.
Well, they're a bit. They should be politically anonymous, and they're not. To grind.
Yeah.
But the point.
I thought you were going to go down your.
Well, I haven't finished yet. I'm just warming up to telling you that that a lot of things are funded by the BBC that are very important, like the BBC World Radio for people all over the world to listen. There's a lot of things that are funded in the TV licence that we all forget about.
Yes, and but then also there's this draconian thing of the licence does. I know you used to come around and see you when you didn't have a telly, didn't they? A lot.
Well, I think that's fair enough. If you're supposed to pay, you've got to be policed to pay.
Yeah, the thing is here
they've lost a lot of license fees during lockdown, apparently.
Oh, what have they? What, because of
Well, people just haven't paid.
Right.
Presumably because their incomes are reduced.
Yes, of course, because we've got two flats here. It's number 2, and there's flat 1 and flat 2. But they're on the electoral roll. There is number 2, flat 2. Number 2 is not listed very often, so it gets very confusing when you're trying to get your address.
Yeah.
Drop-down menus never work. Put it that
No. Well, it happened to me in Montreal Road as well. It's newer properties that somehow there's no joined-up thinking with that.
Yes, but they keep sending a TV licence demand to number 2 where we live, and there isn't a number 2. You're either flat 1 or you're flat 2. You're not number 2. That's nobody in number 2, because there is no number 2.
No.
And so they're just getting increasingly more aggressive. It's impossible to find anywhere to email, ring, tweet, or anything.
Well, I would just ignore that, because you are not number 2 or flat 2 or whatever it is, are you? What are you? You're not the one they're addressing.
Yeah.
No, I would ignore it. Let them come round. Bastards.
Did you just say that?
I did, as a person who has been harassed by them for a decade. Yes,
I know you have, yes. Okay, what about yourself? Anything?
Yes. Marion and I have set up, we're 3 days into restarting a daily tapping habit, and we meet on Zoom every morning, and at the moment we're doing rather too much chatting, but we're keeping each other on the straight and narrow and re-establishing the habit. And I know that once we get back into it, we won't need to do that together every day, but we'll do it individually when one of us isn't available to do it together, as it were. Yes. So it's a way of starting something and getting the habit and embedded, and a companion is invaluable for that. And I'm really enjoying it. It's had benefits already. We've only done it 3 times. And my personalised notebooks from papier.com, which I absolutely love, which have arrived in the post today.
What are they?
They're personalised notebooks. So one says, they're all pink, obviously, and one says Judith Morgan Notebook, the other one says Judith's Daily Musings, and the other one says Judith Morgan's Notes and Thoughts.
I think
papier.com. I can do you a picture easily, because I put it in I Love My Life.
Oh, I want to see a picture of that.
Yep.
Sounds like I need them urgently.
Well, we all need them urgently. Stationery last.
Good stuff. All right, then that's us done.
Okay, see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week.
Yeah, bye.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.